हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गायै नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यंकरवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। भवानी शङ्करो वन्दे श्रद्धाविश्वासरूपिणौ याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धाः स्वान्तस्तमीश्वरं। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। रामाय रामभद्राय रामचन्द्राय वेदसे रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीतायाः पतये नमः। बुद्धिर्बलं यशोधैर्यं निर्भयत्वमरोगताम् अजाड्यं वाक्पटुत्वं च हनुमत्स्मरणात् भवेत्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरं भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ॐ नमः शिवाय 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 ॐ नमः शिवाय। नमः पार्वतीपतये। हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We'll begin with the Shanti mantra. Om Bhadram Karneभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इंद्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्षो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ओम शांति शांति शांति। We'll chant from the third mantra of the second section, third chapter. नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यः न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम् नायमात्मा बलहीनेन लभ्यः न च प्रमादात् तपसो वाप्यलिङ्गात् एतैरुपायैर्यतते यस्तु विद्वान् तस्यैष आत्मा विशते ब्रह्मधाम सम्प्राप्यैनं ऋषयो ज्ञानतृप्ताः कृतात्मानो वीतरागा प्रशान्ताः ते सर्वगं सर्वतः प्राप्य धीराः युक्तात्मानः सर्वमेवाविशन्ति वेदान्तविज्ञानसुनिश्चितार्थाः संन्यासयोगाच्यतयः शुद्धसत्त्वाः ते ब्रह्मलोकेषु परान्तकाले परामृताः परिमुच्यन्ति सर्वे। गता कला पंचदश प्रतिष्ठा देवाश्च सर्वे प्रतिदेवतासु कर्माणि विज्ञानमयश्च आत्मा परे व्यये सर्व एकी भवन्ति। Hari Om. We have been studying this beautiful Upanishad, the Mundaka Upanishad. And in this third chapter, last section, the teacher revealed the importance of worshipping and getting blessings from an enlightened master. So if we want to gain this enlightenment, just by listening to pravachan or studying lot of texts and giving pravachan alone will not help. We have to choose to attain that Atma. Means we should have that intense mumukshutvam, an intense jidnyasa, and that total dedication to attain that Atma. Then alone we will be able to attain it. When we gain the proper knowledge and then meditate with single pointed attention and devotion, then that Atma, the Supreme Self, reveals itself. Tassesha Atma vivrunate tanum swam. This Atma cannot be attained by a weak person without that bala. We need the spiritual strength, the strength which we attain when we follow the path of dharma, also when we do a lot of tapas, and we do practice lot of upasana and meditation, we gain that spiritual strength. And one who is free from all attachments and has given up all karma and with full focus meditates, such a person will be able to attain that Brahma, his self merges into that Supreme Brahma. An enlightened person is fully satisfied in his own, in that knowledge of the self. He feels fulfilled. There are no attachments, gains that supreme peace, because he attains that Brahma which is all pervading. So having gained the knowledge of that Brahma, he enters his self as though enters that Brahma, means becomes one with that Brahma. So the path is to first gain the proper knowledge from the Shastras. So Vedanta Vijnana Sunishchitarthaha. One who has gained the proper understanding of that supreme truth as revealed in Vedanta, as revealed in the Upanishads. Upanishads are the Praman to know the self. And then by the practice of Sannyasa Yoga, renunciation of all actions and constant meditation, when the mind becomes absolutely pure, then such a person, such a seeker, attains that Brahma and becomes free from all bondage. So te brahma lokeshu paranta kale paramruta parimuchanti sarve. So exactly what happens to that enlightened person that we were seeing in the seventh mantra. We shall chant the seventh mantra and read Shankaracharya's commentary also. Gata kala panchadasha pratishtha devascha sarve pratidevatasu कर्माणि विज्ञानमयश्च आत्मा परे व्यये सर्व एकी भवन्ति गता कला पंचदश प्रतिष्ठा देवाश्च सर्वे प्रतिदेवतासु कर्माणि विज्ञानमयश्च आत्मा परे व्यये सर्व एकी भवन्ति गता कला पंचदश pratishtha. An enlightened person, when he comes to realize, recognize that Brahma, then all the kalas of that Brahma merge in that Brahma. There are the 16 kalas mentioned in Prashna Upanishad, which are the different facets, different expressions of that one Brahma. See, the Upanishads talk about that supreme reality as Brahma, and that Brahma is one only. And other than Brahma, nothing else is there. But what about this world? This world is also Brahma. What about all the jivas? All the jivas are also Brahma. So, very important thing is that from the standpoint of Brahma, there are no jivas and there is no world. But from the standpoint of the jiva, we experience the world. An enlightened person also experiences this world. So there are these three important standpoints. Three important standpoints are there through which we experience this world and ourselves. One is the standpoint of an ignorant jiva. The standpoint of an ignorant jiva. So an ignorant jiva comes to see this world. He experiences this world through his senses, through his mind, intellect. And due to ignorance, he considers this world as different from himself. And also considers himself as the doer, knower, and enjoyer. So that is the standpoint of a jiva. And when we have this standpoint, we experience sorrow, pain, suffering, what we call samsara. So samsara is experienced by this jiva when he has got that ignorance, and due to ignorance has a wrong standpoint, he experiences samsara and suffering. But when that jiva, by Bhagwan's grace, starts following the path of dharma, as the mind becomes pure, follows the path of karma yoga and upasana, which further purifies his mind. Thereafter, he seeks the blessings of a teacher and gains that knowledge of that Supreme Brahma, and then renounces all attachments and karma and meditates and gains the knowledge or direct realization, aparoksha anubhuti of his own self. So become an enlightened person. So an enlightened person continues to see the world. The enlightened person continues to experience or see his body also. Because the body continues to exist, the mind, intellect, senses continue to exist even after enlightenment. So an enlightened person is called a Jivan Mukta. Though alive and expressing through the body, is free, is mukta. So there is this standpoint of an enlightened person. When he looks at this world, he doesn't see the world as different from him. Though with the eyes he sees a world, with just as an ignorant person sees, but the enlightened person knows that this world is not different from me. Everything is my own self. The sun, the moon, the stars, the mountains, all the beings, all of them are my own self. And he sees his own self in all. So sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani cha atmani pashyati. He sees his self in all and he sees everything in his own self. That is the sarvatma bhav. So an enlightened person attains what is called sarvatma bhav. The sarva is seen. The sarva means this whole world, everything doesn't disappear. Everything is seen, but everything is experienced as his own self. So that is the standpoint of an enlightened person. But there is one more standpoint, and that is the standpoint of Brahma, the Supreme Reality. From the standpoint of Brahma, there is no world, there are no jivas. And that is the standpoint indicated in Mundaka Upanishad also, Karikas. Kina kaschit jayate jivaha. No jivas are born. No world is there. In that Brahma, there is nothing. So these three standpoints one has to keep in mind. Because when we listen to the Shastras, we have to understand from what standpoint the Shastras are talking. The Shastras, they talk to the ignorant person and gives advice to follow the path of dharma, to follow the path of karma yoga. The Shastras also describe the beautiful characteristic of an enlightened person, like Sthita Prajna. In Gita, Bhagavan talks about the Sthita Prajna, it's an enlightened person. And the Shastras also talk from the standpoint of that Brahma, that in that Brahma nothing is there. Neha nanasti kinchana. In Bhagavad Gita also, 9th chapter, Bhagavan gave these standpoints very beautifully. So as an enlightened person, when he looks at this world, then the whole world is pervaded by me only. So Bhagavan, as an enlightened person, he speaks, he says, ki maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina masthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu vastitaha nachamasthani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram. He says, when you look at this world, I alone pervade this world in my unmanifest form. Everything exists in me, everything depends on me, but I don't depend on the world. And in my absolute Swarupa, there is no world. So many people get confused with the different standpoint, but you should be very clear about them. To give an example, we can take an example of let us say, of mirage waters. When you go to a desert, it is actually a lot of, everything is filled with that sand only. Everywhere you see different sand dunes, sands are there. But even in desert, there are some places where you can find some oases and some water and some trees, etc. But otherwise it's all sand everywhere. And when the sun is shining very brightly, at times, if we look at a distance, we see as though there is water there. Water appears to be there. We see waters. We can see the waters shining. We can actually experience, with our eyes, we see that water. So when we see that water, we believe that there is water there. But when we go to that place and investigate, we find that there is no water. It is just sand. It is just sand. So now, let us say there is one person, ignorant person, who sees water from a distance. Then there is another person who knows that it is just a mirage, there is no water. So he is a wise person, enlightened person. And when you actually go there, you only see sand. So there are these three standpoints. Ignorant person, he sees water and he thinks there is water. Wise person, he sees water but knows that there is no water. but he continues to see water. And from the standpoint of that place itself, you find that there is only sand. There is no water. Similarly, an ignorant person experiences duality. I am different, this world is different. That's called Dvaita Prapancha, which causes sorrow, pain, fear, and all sufferings. And when we gain proper knowledge, then we experience that Advaita, that oneness. But we continue experiencing our body and this world. So an enlightened person, he experiences what is called Sarvatma Bhav, that I alone am everything. Atma eva idagam sarvam, Brahma eva idam sarvam, that everything is Brahma and that Brahma am I. But from the standpoint of Brahma itself, there is no world, there are no jivas, there is nothing. So, here the teacher is saying that when an enlightened person, and this world, when we say, the world is described in different ways. The world is made up of these 24 tattvas are there. Pancha Mahabhut. Then the Pancha Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha. Then Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Mana Buddhi Chitta Ahankar. So these 24 tattvas we experience as this world. These 24 tattvas becomes the bodies of infinite jivas who are there. So the jivas are also experienced in this world. But the Shastras also define or describe the world as having, as that Brahma only. World is not different from Brahma. So they describe the world as that Brahma whom they call Purusha. And that Purusha has got these 16 kalas. So the whole world and so many different features which are there in this world are like the 16 kalas, 16 facets of that Supreme Purusha, who is not only there present everywhere, but is also present in the very cave of our own antakkarana, cave of our heart. This is beautifully presented in Prashnopanishad. In the last question which is asked, there are 6 questions which are asked in Prashnopanishad. And in the last question, the disciple asks about this Shodasha Kala Purusha. This Purusha having 16 kalas. So, where is this Purusha? So the teacher replies that this Purusha is there in this body itself. Iha eva antas sharire somya sa purushaha yasmin eta shodasha kala prabhavanti iti. This Purusha is in this body itself. And then the teacher, he describes that how from that Brahma, who is with his Shakti, Maya, we call, the Shastras call that Brahma as Ishvara. Ishvara is another name of Brahma. When the Shastra talk about that Brahma as the creator of this world, as as the one from whom this whole world has come into existence. So from that Ishvara alone, the 16 kalas, they manifest. And the first kala is prana. And that prana is Hiranyagarbha. So the first one to be born from Brahma is Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is a jiva, but is an enlightened jiva. Thereafter, Hiranyagarbha, after taking birth, he creates this whole world. So that Hiranyagarbha is indicated as prana, because that prana shakti of Ishvara is there in Hiranyagarbha. Plus he has got this samashti mana, samashti buddhi, samashti ahankar, and the panchatan matras. So Hiranyagarbha is also one kala of that Supreme Brahma. Then from that Hiranyagarbha is born Shraddha, faith. Faith is also important facet of that Brahma. Because with faith only we live in this world, and whatever karma we perform, we do it with faith. Depending on our faith, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, we interact with this world. So, the this Shraddha. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita, it says that Shraddha Mayo Ayam Purushaha. This person is made up of his Shraddha only. As our Shraddha, so are we. So with that Shraddha, we perform various karmas. So in order to perform karma, we require a body. And that body is made up of these 5 elements. So the 5 elements are also the kalas of this Purusha. So Kham, Vayu, Jyotihi, Apaha, and Prithvi. Means Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Prithvi. The 5 great elements. They are the kalas from which the body is made of all the beings. Then from these 5 elements are born the different indriyas. The karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas are the products of the 5 elements. So indriyam, so indriyas are also the kalas of this Purusha. Then the indriyas are controlled by manaha, our mind. So mind is also one kala. Then to maintain this body, mind, indriyas, we need food. So food is also one of the kala of that Brahma. So annam. So we eat different types of food and we gain the virya, the strength to perform actions, to perform various types of sadhana and tapas, etc. So that virya, the strength required, is also one of the kala of that Supreme Brahma. Then tapaha, when we live in this world, performing action, fulfilling our desires, our antakarana becomes very impure. So to purify the antakarana, we need to do some tapas. So that tapa is also one of the kala of that Supreme Brahma. So tapaha. Once we do the tapas, our antakarana becomes extremely pure. So we need that knowledge of that Supreme to become free of this world, or we need the knowledge of different karmas which will give us the different types of results. So for that we need the blessings of the Vedas. So the mantras of the Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda, they also are the facets of that Supreme Brahma. And depending on this Vedic mantras, we perform different types of actions, karma. So karma are also kala of that Brahma. And when we perform this karma, we go to different lokas. So those lokas are also facets of Brahma. And in those lokas, we live there having different names. We have our own names, and the names are there of these different beings. So those names, name is also a kala of that Brahma. So these are the 16 kalas of Brahma. But when an enlightened person gains that knowledge of that Brahma, then the kalas, they merge as though merge into that Brahma. Because a person who has gained the knowledge of Brahma remains what you call as a Jivan Mukta. But once the prarabdha of the physical body is over, that body also gets dropped, and all the kala, that enlightened person becomes Brahma only, he is Brahma. So as Brahma, all his kalas, they also merge into him. Then there is no more need for that enlightened person for this world. There is no more need for any lokas or anything in this world. So everything merges into that Brahma. And that is very beautifully presented in this mantra. Ki gata kala panchadasha pratishtha. These 15 kalas, as I said, the nama remains of an enlightened person, but as far as enlightened person is there, all the kalas have merged into him. He transcends the standpoint. He transcends the standpoint of an ignorant person, becomes a wise person. But thereafter, when the body gets dropped, even that standpoint is dropped, he becomes a Brahma only. There is no difference between an enlightened person and Brahma. That enlightened person is Brahma. So gata kala panchadasha pratishtha devascha sarve pratidevata. So all the indriyas also merge with in their respective devatas. All the karmas also merge, karmani, and vijnanamayascha atma. And this vijnanamaya atma means the sense of I which we have in the buddhi. That also merges into that Brahma, pare avyaye, in that param Brahma, that imperishable Brahma, sarvam eki bhavanti, everything becomes one. Sarvam eki bhavanti. So let us read Shankaracharyaji's commentary. Shankaracharyaji writes, Ki kim cha moksha kale, what happens at the time of moksha? He says, Ya deharambikaha kalaha. So all the kalas which give rise to this body, etc. Pranadhyaha, the pran, shraddha, kham, and all those which I described. Pranadhyaha ta swam pratishtam gataha. They go, all of them merge in their pratishtha, in their very substratum. And the substratum of all these kalas is that Brahma. So all of them become one with Brahma. Pranadhyaha ta swam pratishtam gataha. Swam karanam gata bhavanti ityartaha. They go into their cause. See, that which comes from a cause, the karya, again merges back into the cause. Just like the ornaments which have come from gold, ornaments which have risen from gold again merges back into gold. See, actually from the standpoint of gold, there are no ornaments, there is only gold only. But from a different standpoint, we see different ornaments, we are given them different names, and we also have different utility for them. But from the standpoint of gold itself, there are no ornaments. So, pratishta iti dvitiya bahuvachanam. पंचदश पंचदश संख्या का या अंत्य प्रश्न परिपठिता प्रसिद्धा देवाश्च. So what are the 15 kalas? So Shankaracharya says they are the one which are mentioned in the Prashnopanishad, the last question. Devascha dehashrayas chakshuradi karanastha sarve pratidevatasu adityadusu dishu gata bhavanti ityartaha. So all these kalas, they go into their cause. The indriyas, they become one with their respective devatas. So each indriyas, they have their own adhishthan devatas. They become one with their adhishthan devatas. So everything becomes one with their respective cause. See, just as our body, our physical body, when it is born, it takes the food and all which we eat. It is nothing but these 5 elements. So this body is made from the 5 elements. So once the body gets dropped, then the physical body becomes one with the 5 elements. But an ignorant person, Sukshma Sharir, doesn't become one with the total, with that Brahma. Because that ignorance is still there. Therefore, the Sukshma Sharir doesn't get dissolved. Therefore, the person is born again. But an enlightened person, Sukshma Sharir, also merges in the supreme cause. So yani cha mumukshuna krutani karmani apravritta phalani pravritta phalanam upabhogena eva kshiyamanatvat. And all the karma, which sanchita karma and all the agami karma, everything also merges in their respective in the supreme cause. The prarabdha karma remains as long as this body is there. Once the prarabdha karma of this body gets exhausted, then that also merges into the supreme. And vijnanamayascha atma. And this vijnanamaya atma, what is that? Avidya krita buddhyadi upadhim atmatvena matva. Because of avidya, we identify with our buddhi and we consider all the thoughts in the buddhi as our own. We consider ourselves as that buddhi and we gain an identity, false identity. Shankaracharya ji writes, just like the reflection of the sun in the bucket of water, so the reflection gets a separate as though identity with respect to the waters and with respect to the bucket. Similarly, the presence of that Supreme Self in our buddhi creates a false identity, which is a false identity, like I am a doer, I am a knower, I am an enjoyer. And we perform various actions and get the different results. But when that supreme knowledge happens, then this identity, false identity, also dissolves in that supreme Brahma. So jaladishu suryadi pratibimbavat iha pravishto deha bhedeshu karmanam तत्फलार्थत्वात् सह तेनैव विज्ञानमयेन आत्मना अतः विज्ञानमयः विज्ञानप्रायः त एते कर्माणि विज्ञानमयश्च आत्मा उपाधि अपनये सति परे अव्यये. So when that we gain that knowledge and all confusion goes away, then this Vijnanamaya Atma also merges into that Supreme Brahma, into that Param. It says Pare Avyaye. What is that Pare Avyaye? These are the indicators of that Brahma. So Shankaracharya ji gives some more indicators. He says Pare in that Supreme. Avyaye. Avyaye means indestructible. Anante, the infinite. That Brahma is infinite. Infinite, not limited by anything. Neither space, nor time, nor objects can limit that Supreme Brahma. It is Ananta. Akshaye, there is no Kshaya, there is no decay in that Brahma. So Akshaye Brahmani Akasha Kalpe, which is like Akash, like space. Ajay, which is unborn, that Brahma is unborn. Ajare, there is no old age in Brahma. Amrute, it doesn't die. Abhaye, it is free from all fears. Apurve, which is unique. There is, you cannot compare that Brahma with anything. Anapare, which is one, unique. Anantare, which doesn't have any division. Abhahye, there is nothing outside that Brahma. Advaye, it is one without a second. It is not two. See, Advaya or Advaita is a beautiful term, which means that Dvaita is seen and experienced, but Advaita is not there. There is only Advaita. Just like we see many ornaments. So many ornaments are not denied, but in that many ornaments, there is only one gold. Similarly, our Shastras do not deny this world. World is never indicated as mithya. The world is there. Therefore, the term sarva, sarva, sarva is used. Even in Mundaka Upanishad, it begins with the word sarva. Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam. Idam sarvam means this world. So, this world is, though it's seen, but really it is all Brahma only. So Advaye, Shive, in the Shiva, most auspicious, Shante, which is supremely peaceful. In that peaceful and auspicious Brahma, everything becomes one. Sarva eki bhavanti. Everything merges and everything becomes one with that Brahma. Everything becomes one in that Brahma. For this enlightened person, ignorant person continues to see the world and continues to experience sorrow, pain, suffering. But an enlightened person, for an enlightened person, everything has merged into that Brahma. That is the mystery, that is the beauty. That is the great wonder. So the infinite ignorant jivas continue to experience sorrow and suffering, but an enlightened person, For an enlightened person, everything has merged into that Brahma. So, eki bhavanti, avisheshatam gacchanti. There remains no separation, no separate qualities of any objects and all. Everything becomes one. Eki bhavanti, avisheshatam gacchanti, ekatvam apadyante. जलादि आधारापनय इव सूर्यादि प्रतिबिंबाः. Surye, just like the sun appears to be many and different when you look into the reflections of the sun in the waters. When we see the reflections, we see many suns. But when those waters are also removed, then what happens to the reflection? It becomes one with that sun. There remains no separate reflection. Similarly, when all the buddhi and all these things merge in that Brahma, there remains no separate existence of anything. Everything has become one with that Brahma. So, iva suryadi pratibimbaha surye ghatadi apanaya iva akashe ghatakashaha. Just like a ghata, a pot is there, many pots are there, and in all those pots we see as though the existence of pot space. But when the pot gets broken, then the space inside and outside is one only. There remains nothing to divide the space. The space not even appears divided. See, for an enlightened person, when he looks at this world, though he continues to see multiplicity, but he knows that there is only one. But the world appears to be there. But once this body gets dropped, even the appearance of the world just disappears. There only remains that one Brahma. Neha nanasti kinchana, nothing other than Brahma. So an enlightened person has reached his destination. He becomes one with that Brahma. Then we worship that enlightened person as Ishvara only. Then when we worship Rama, Krishna, Shiva, in them we also worship our own teacher, the enlightened master. We don't have to have a separate temple in their name. Then the worship of Rama is worship of that enlightened person. Worship of Shiva is the worship of enlightened person. Therefore, when the enlightened person, even samadhi is sthala is there, then they keep a small Shivalinga, and that Shivalinga is worshipped. Because the body has become one, the Sthula Sharir has become one with the Sthula Jagat, and the Sukshma Sharir also has become one with the totality. So there remains nothing separate. That enlightened person is not born again. So he has become one with Brahma. So he is worshipped as Brahma. Therefore we say Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Eva Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Shankaracharya ji gives, not Shankaracharya ji, the Shruti gives an example here in the next mantra. Beautiful example. So let us chant mantra number 8. Yatha nadyashyandamana samudre astam gacchanti nama rupe vihaya tatha vidvan nama rupad vimuktah Parat param purusham upayati divyam yatha nadyasyandyamana samudre astam gachanti nama rupe vihaya तथा विद्वान् नाम रूपाद् विमुक्तः परात् परम पुरुषमुपैति दिव्यम् says कि यथा नद्यः gives example of nadis, the rivers. So many rivers are there. They flow on this earth, on the land. Sandyamanaha. In our Bharat Desh also, so many countless rivers are there. Some of them are so famous and so very pavitra. All of them are pavitra, but some are more popular because they are mentioned in our Shastras also. Gange cha Yamune chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalesmin Sannidham Kuru. So these are various nadis, and they have their own character, own personality also. If you observe these rivers, you can see that they have their own personality. They have their own source from where they originate, and they what you call they flow also differently. The waters also appear different in different nadi. The depth and the what you call their roots appears different. Some flow with lot of vigor, some flow very softly. So they have their different forms. Like Gangaji Shvetavarna is fair, Yamuna is dark, black. Therefore, when we go to the Sangam of Ganga and Yamuna, we see them very clearly, the fair and the dark Nadi meeting at Prayagraj. So, Shankaracharya, this Shruti says, ki yatha nadyah sandyamanaha. So, just as the rivers flowing, but where do they go? Where do they go? Where do those rivers go? They go to the ocean. They all of them, though they bless everyone on the way, but their destination is the ocean. Tulsidas ji also talks about Ganga. He says, Kikirati bhaniti bhuti bhali soi, surasari sama sabkain hita hoi. That this Surasari, this Gangaji, it just moves, blessing everyone on the way. But finally it reaches the ocean. All these rivers, they finally reach the ocean. And a very strange thing happens. Before reaching the ocean, we call the Nadi Ganga or Yamuna, and we worship it. We have our special rapport with that Nadi. But once it meets the ocean, then what happens? A very mysterious, strange thing happens. The Nadi loses its name as well as its form. It just becomes the ocean. It becomes the ocean. Where is Ganga? It has become the Sagara. It becomes the ocean. See, Yamuna is a very special Nadi. Yamuna doesn't merge with the ocean directly. It merges with Ganga. Merging with Ganga only, there is fulfillment for Yamuna. Yamuna becomes fulfilled when she merges with Ganga and thereafter start flowing like Ganga. Yamuna represents karma, Ganga represents that bhakti, and Saraswati is that jnana. Rama bhagati jahan sura saridhara, सरसहि ब्रह्म विचार प्रचारा, विधि निषेधमय कलिमर हरणी, करम कथार बिनंदिनी भरणी. So all this Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. So Yamuna merges with Ganga and thereafter flows like Ganga. But when it meets, the Nadi meets the ocean, it becomes one with the ocean. Thereafter it is named as ocean only. Similarly, so many great Mahatmas, they have different personalities when they were sadhaks, and even different personalities seem to be there when they are enlightened also. They seem to behave differently. Durvasa Rishi had his own behavior. He used to get angry with everyone. Some Mahatmas live alone, quiet, without interacting with the world. Some are busy interacting with the world. So they have different personalities, they have different names also. But once they become one with Brahma, they don't have any different form or different name. They become Brahma. Brahmavid Brahmaeva Bhavati. Thereafter they are just Brahma only. More about this we will see in our class tomorrow. So till then you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana. Listen to the pravachan again, contemplate, meditate, and we will meet again tomorrow. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram, 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 Jaya Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. Boliye Siyavar Ramachandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.